Hello traders, in today's video we're going to be talking about a sentiment indicator that I honestly should have talked about more, I think, in the last few months or even in the past few years. So today what we're going to be talking about is the predicted funding rate. This is basically a way in which we can look at how overvalued or undervalued a coin is believed to be by futures traders. So without further ado, let's go look. Looking at my hair in the last clip, I feel like I'm right out of like NSYNC or like Backstreet Boys. I seriously look like I'm in like some like boy band. Okay, so again, what we're gonna be looking at is the funding rate. So a quick recap on really what is the funding rate. So what the funding rate is it shows us over the course of one day how much percent higher is the perpetual trading over spot. So if, let's say, over one day, the perp is trading on average 0.5% higher than its spot pair or its spot index, then the funding rate will be about 0.5% a day. Now, let's say that the perp is trading 0.5% below the spot pair. Then over the course of that day, about negative 0.5% funding will be paid. And that's basically how funding works. So basically, when funding is very, very positive, that means that the perpetual is trading way above spot. When funding is very, very negative, that means that the perpetual is trading way below spot. Final thing is, when the funding rate's positive, shorts get money, longs lose money. So longs have to pay the shorts. When the funding rate's really negative, longs profit, longs make money because shorts have to pay the longs. Okay? So that is the basics of funding. And now let's get over to the sentiment side. So when the funding rate's very, very negative, what that means is that traders typically believe that the market will fall. They believe that the market's overvalued, and that's why the funding rate's negative. So when this does happen, this means that traders are willing to short, negative 0.2% lower than the spot pair, or, as in Doge's case, about negative 0.15% lower. They're willing to short a little bit lower, and they're also willing to pay that funding rate. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So let's go look at Dogecoin, because this coin is just insane today. The open interest change means a lot of new positions are in. But let's go look at what do people think about this coin. I'm going to be looking at the aggregated predicted funding rate. So this includes just a lot of the major pairs like FTX, Binance, and BitMEX, and Huobi. And I don't like the coloring of this, so I am going to have to change this. But the more and more that I look at the aggregated funding rate, the more and more I think that this literally is one of the best indicators. This open interest and long short ratio is definitely, the like power trio. And I feel like I just haven't given enough video space to really any of it. So here's my belief on the funding rate. You might have a different belief, but typically when the funding rate's super, super positive, I typically think that means that, to me, traders are overvaluing the coin and the coin will soon fall. And when the funding rate's very, very negative, that means that a lot of people believe that the market's going to fall, and that makes me think the market will rise. So let's go look at some examples of this on Doge. So here you can see we had some pretty positive funding. This just not much happened really. This was in March where Doge wasn't really doing anything crazy. But when things do get crazy, it's around here. So Doge had this wild increase of about, 31%. Nothing wild compared to what happened in the past 2 or 3 days. But you can see the funding rate got a lot higher. We went on an average of about, average daily of about 0.7 to the average being like 2. So this, to me, is a sign that futures traders are really overvaluing Doge. And the market did fall. And the market fell. And then the market actually stopped falling when traders kind of lost that bullishness on Doge. So really what you can see here is the funding rate fell as the perpetual wasn't trading way above spot, but the perpetual was just trading a bit closer to spot. And that to me is a pretty bullish sign because it shows me that the general market is expecting that the market's general futures traders on Doge think that Doge is going to fall a little bit. And then we get the craziest candle I have ever seen in my life. It looks like, I don't even know what to say about this. Just a million memes that could be made about this. Okay. It's like you're trading, you're just like trading, you're trying to scalp and then out of nowhere you just get this and you're just like, okay, I guess this is how crypto is. Yeah, so this kind of setup, of course, doesn't always work. But one thing that I do like to do, and one thing that I do like to see, is markets rising, funding rates falling. That's a pretty bullish sign to me. But you might say, wait, Bennett, your strategy doesn't really work here because the funding rate's really high, but the market goes up anyway. And I would say you're probably right for sure. However, the funding rate falling does make me, of course, bullish. But then this is where things get quite interesting. What I noticed pretty recently, I think this was just like this morning or a few hours ago, the funding rate got very, very negative on Doge, predicted funding rate. This to me is telling me that at these prices, a lot of futures traders are just believing that Doge is just going to have to fall. And when a lot of people believe that something has to fall, that to me is a sign the market's probably going to rise, as crazy as that might sound. And this has to do with position sellers and position buyers, and also because of really expectations in the market tend to get subverted. That's just how the market operates. It just constantly is going to subvert your expectations and do stuff that you would never thought would have happened, i.e. this guy right here. So this was, I can't even say just how extreme this is. This is a predicted average funding rate across multiple exchanges of -2%. Guys, what this means is that at one point, on average, the perpetual asset was trading about 2% lower than spot. That means that just so many people were bearish on Doge, and this many people bearish on Doge with the price being stable is just really bullish, to be honest with you guys. And I know 2020 hindsight and all, but look at what happened. Price went up like another 70% and liquidated a lot of these traders. If we go look at liquidations, a lot of these people probably got liquidated right here. And the reason they did was because a lot of people were shorting here. And you could just see it plain as day with that funding rate. And yeah, it didn't go too well for them, did it? I wonder if open interest actually fell or rose. Oh, yep, open interest fell. Kind of. Yeah. Doge is complicated, but I really do think that I'm going to probably make this my number 1 or number 2 indicator. Number 1 being open interest, number 2 being the aggregated predicted funding rate. I prefer predicted because it's quicker to change than something like the other indicator, which was the funding rate on close. So let's now we can look at everyone's favorite coin, but I want to look at more extremes because you can learn a lot from extremes. Let's go look at, I don't really care about that though. That has like no open interest. So this doesn't have much. Okay, I'll look at you. I've never heard of this. I don't know what this is, but let's go look at the funding rate and see if our kind of strategy still does hold. Okay, this looks all over the place. Is this just one exchange? If it is, I'm not going to look at it. Yeah, it's just one exchange. What I want to look at is a coin that has lots of different exchanges on it because I want to get a really broad view of that. And to do that, you're going to have to look for coins with a little bit larger open interest than under a few $1 million. NKN has 10 mil. This is 10.3 is Acro. All right, I'll look at you, Acro. You have a quite positive funding rate, and you're on Binance and Huobi. All right, I guess you're good enough. Let's go look at you. So again, I'm going to kill the sum close. I don't love the coloring here, but whatever. All right, let's go look at this. So yeah, I think that my strategy does still kind of hold. I mean, look here. Funding rate's really, really positive, just about here. Then let's go look at the percent fall. And then after the funding rate gets pretty positive, price falls about 10, 11%. And then the very second that, I don't know if you guys can see this because it's like, I don't love the coloring, but you can see that the funding rate really does drop off dramatically near the market low. And that to me is saying that traders are kind of losing their bullishness, which to me is a sign that I should be increasing my bullishness. Subvert the market, subvert the market's players. I don't know where I'm going with that, but yeah. Another example is here. I mean, the funding rate was like nothing, which to me is saying that traders just aren't really willing to pay that premium to go long. What was the funding rate? 0.02 per day. God, like that's really, really low. Yeah, that's very, very, very low. So the funding rate was just absolutely nothing there. And yeah, so now let's go look at the coin that, of course, everyone's favorite coin, because when you guys are watching this video, I'll bet you that most of you guys are going to be doing it on just Bitcoin and Doge. And I kind of don't blame you. Especially on Doge, it works pretty well recently. Doesn't mean it's going to work like really well in the future, but it has been working pretty well. All right, so Bitcoin is traded almost everywhere. On every single cryptocurrency exchange, it's going to be traded. So we have a lot of data on this. So let's go look at what happened. Yeah, so after this just super bullish move, I just don't like this. Look at this. The funding rate goes from an average of about, 0.15 per day to what is this crazed rate on Bitcoin? 1.5 a day? I mean, traders were just way too bullish here. Way too bullish, and it just wasn't the time for Bitcoin to rise at that time. And price falls. So where is the absolute lowest that funding was? Well, funding actually went negative here, and you can see at the time when funding went negative that this would have actually been a pretty decent spot to buy, especially the first one. In the short term, it would have been like a little annoying to have that -2%, -1%, but yeah, overall it looks pretty healthy. And then this one didn't really have much drawdown because if you had bought around here, you probably would have been pretty safe. You at least wouldn't again liquidated. Yeah, and if you had let's say on a strategy of where you buy when it gets negative and sell when it gets like super positive, I mean, the only times that it got super positive were at market peaks, such as this price point right there and this price point right here. And both of those times would have been a pretty good time to sell. And this price point right here, like this whole range of when the funding rate gets that high has been historically a pretty good time to sell. And you can see the funding rate kind of flares up sometimes and then just kind of dies down. And these are things that you can take advantage of probably. So the first kind of like flare up that I would say that we haven't talked about yet, it flares up. It goes from about 0.66 daily to doubles like 1.3, 1.2, and 1.3. And it does that at around here. And then, the market's like, hey, that's just too bullish, guys. And the market does fall a bit. Yeah, and then you can just see these patterns of bullishness and bearishness kind of like going in and out, in and out, in and out. So remember, the funding rate is basically going to tell us, how bullish or bearish are traders on this asset in the future. Because if you look at perpetual versus spot, we know that spot, there's typically, there's no leverage or funding rate. There can be leverage, but that's spot margin. That's a whole nother story. Because there's no funding rate, it's kind of something to compare things against. So what we want to do is compare the perpetual to the spot rate because the perpetual carries that funding rate. And that funding rate, of course, is going to tell us how bullish or bearish are leverage traders on this asset. And, when people get extremely bearish on something because they think the price is overpriced, that historically, weirdly enough, those examples historically are actually pretty good examples of buying. I don't know why, but I think something about when a coin doubles in value, I think a lot of people naturally gravitate more toward the side of, hey, it's overvalued, more so than the side of, oh, it's just going to keep going up. I mean, there are people in both camps, of course, when price does that. But a good trader isn't in either camp. A good trader looks at data and just doesn't even think about their preconceived notions about something being overpriced or something being guaranteed to go up more. And if you have the ability to just shut up your preconceived notions of what's going to happen after a coin doubles or whatever, look at the hard data of open interest, look at sentiment, and then, of course, look at the new indicator, not new, but this indicator, predicted funding rate. That is, I think, you're going to be leagues ahead of other people. So another example of that is, let's go look at other coins that have had kind of crazy changes in 24 hours. I don't know if this is going to work. Okay. Let's look at Ethereum Classic or CHC. Let's look at Chiliz. So yeah, again, I don't know if this is going to work because it's on four exchanges. But let's go look at some of this. Again, I'm mostly going to be focusing just on the predicted. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything like beautiful here besides the fact that traders got pretty bearish here. And look what happened to them. Bye-bye. Plus 22%. See you, fellas. And then traders got like moderately bearish right here as well. And if, something I probably should do is, let's just do this. This way, like I can't really reference the price, even though I kind of have a memory of where price was. Can I draw on this? Am I allowed to? Am I allowed to? Is there like a drawing tool I can use? No, I can't. But I can just shade, like shift click and, oops, sorry. Didn't mean to cheat there. Yeah, so it looks like traders got super bullish here. So I'm assuming, like I honestly don't know what happened here to CHC, but I'm assuming here was at least near a market top. It would be interesting if this was like a market valley or market low, but I'll bet you that this was a market top. And the reason I'm saying that is we see the funding rate just climbing, climbing, climbing. People getting really, really bullish at 1.55% daily. And then that funding rate goes to 0.4, kind of like falls by 2/3 or something, or 3/4. I'm assuming that 14th April 5 UTC is market top. Let's see. So, of course, as with most things in life, it's more complicated than it seems. It wasn't exactly a market top. It was just a slow descent, which is not what I expected at all. So, yes, I was kind of correct on that, but not full marks for sure. Yeah, the price does go a little bit lower. Price goes lower about like 5%. So, shorting here would have been fine. And then the funding rate kind of just goes really, really low, which, of course, is typically a sign that we want to buy. But it's not really a great example. I think that a much better example would be what just happened on CHC. So let's actually go a little bit shorter term and play this a little bit shorter term. So on the 5-minute, we only get that data, but it looks like traders have never been this bullish. Traders are quite bullish, which is a sign I think that this could be a potential micro market top. Maybe the market falls a little bit more because traders are just too bullish. Final thing I want to look at for this guy is let's go really long term. Let's go look at what's going on here. So yeah, same kind of pattern even on the daily. When the funding rate's like nothing, that's the sign sometimes that you want to buy, especially when like not much is happening and the market rises, but the funding rate doesn't. That is such a good sign for me to buy. Wow, like this would have been great time to have bought CHZ. And then what happens? Well, the funding rate gets a lot more positive. Goes to about 0.7 there. Wait, am I frozen? Uh-oh. Did my camera freeze? Oh, my camera. Did it literally just freeze on like the worst frame of like... Yeah, okay. I hope you guys can at least... Oh, yeah, you guys can. Okay. I'm still going to finish out this video, even though my camera is being stupid. All right, I'm just going to delete that. Okay, that's fine. All right, so bye-bye to my face. So let's go look at ETC because this is another one that, oh wow, this is interesting because it went negative recently. So this is another classic example of what I talked about just before. This is beautiful. What we had seen on Doge is the market rose up to a certain point, and then people thought that it was overvalued. So ETC did the exact same thing. It rose about 60%. People thought that it was wildly overvalued, so the funding rate went negative. This would have been a beautiful time to have loaded up on calls or to just have had gone long. So it looks like the funding rate was quite negative around here-ish, and this whole area would have been pretty good to start to think about buying. So let's say you had bought when kind of the dust settled, which is typically not a terrible time to buy, is when the dust kind of settles. If you had bought that, I mean, you're looking at a pretty nice 58% increase. Then the funding rate goes really positive to about like 2.5, which to me is a sign I want to short or close my long. So yes, same kind of example here. Funding rate was kind of negative around here on ETC, and it would have been a good time to have gone long. Let's look at the daily. So what you got for me daily? Okay, you're kind of all over the place, but yeah, this looks kind of crazed funding, so it probably will fall. Kind of the same pattern happened here, except the market did rise a little bit more, I guess. Yeah, let's look at the 5-minute, and then I'm probably not going to look at this guy again. Oh, that is a beauty. Look at that, guys. Look at that. So the funding rate gets kind of negative. People are kind of like, hey, I think it's going to go lower. I think that the market's overvalued. And then look at that. People are like, oh, it's going to keep rising. This is just going to show you the psychology of the market just through the funding rate of the percent distance between perp and spot. You know, had you bought when the negative funding rate was like maybe a negative 0.4, 0.3, let's say you buy around here and have some drawdown, like maybe a 20% drawdown or a 10, oh, only a 6, you know, and then you just get out the very second the funding goes insane, you know, that's a pretty decent return. So to really finish out this video, I've had a lot of traders come to me and kind of just tell me, hey, Bennett, you're kind of neglecting the funding rate. And I honestly kind of have. The last time I made a video on funding rate as an indicator was in 2018 on BitMEX funding. And that just kind of shows just how old it was. Shade to BitMEX. Yeah, now Binance Futures and FTX and some Asian exchanges rule the game, of course. But I think that this is an indicator you really have to use. And if you want the kind of perfect setup, I think that open interest and the funding rate and liquidations, I think that that's going to be really an excellent way to view the market. And if it's aggregated from multiple exchanges, even better. So without further ado, this site is completely free, and I'm going to link in the description below for you guys to use it for your own gain. And yeah, if you guys have any other questions, you can message me on Twitter, on Discord, or shoot me an email. Additionally, I have just released my new course of options trading course. So if you want to know how you can take advantage of certain cryptocurrencies when you're quite bullish or quite bearish, but you want to do so with minimized risk, then you can go check out my course. Happy trading!